Deeply stunned, Lady Angelica desperately wonders how this seemingly impossible and tragic situation suddenly happened. She gazes affectionately at Lord Raymond while lovingly referring to him as her beloved husband. Acknowledging a painful truth, she tearfully admits the one Raymond truly loved was not her. Coughing weakly, the Imperial Princess regretfully confesses to forcing him into an entirely unwanted marriage. She begs the incredibly kind man not to worry or mourn her impending, tragic death. Disregarding her own life, she selflessly wishes for his life to be filled with happiness. Angelica, the Wisteria Empire's sixth princess and hailed saint, tragically ends her life at 18. Shockingly defying her expected fate, the princess suddenly awakens to congratulations for her 16th birthday. A strange echoing sound completely shatters the surrounding silence as she abruptly awakens from slumber. Servants prepare her dress while announcing that His Majesty eagerly awaits the detached princess tonight. Shocked to be just 16 years old, she absolutely insists she definitely died at 18. As her royal gifts arrive, she frantically questions exactly what happened to those 2 years. She quietly observes the thankful messages sent by people saved through her miraculously accurate prophecies. Concerned observers quietly wonder what is wrong with the deeply depressed princess since her birthday. Realizing her daily diary stopped 2 years ago, she intensely questions if time truly reverted. Flipping through the pages, she confirms these diaries are actually the precise records of prophecies. Wisterian people possess blessings, and her specific role was providing prophecies via eyes of foresight. Panicking intensely, she fears her precious blessing is completely lost because she cannot see futures. Denying it was just a dream, she desperately questions exactly what is happening to her. Master Jung abruptly arrives, announcing himself as a court mage who heavily desires serving Angelica. Immensely confused by the unprecedented visit, she firmly notes no one like him visited before. Staring intensely, the mysterious mage bluntly states she looks like someone resurrected from the dead. Casting a silencing spell, he gently suggests they share a little private chat between themselves. Upon hearing her unbelievable memories, he likens it to the returning maiden's famous death anecdote. He quickly asks if she knows the local legend about a regretful dead girl waking up. The legend states this girl miraculously restarts her life to live entirely without any regrets. Reflecting deeply, she sadly contemplates the sorrowful events that specifically transpired during her previous life. Grasping the concept of her 18-year previous life, she fervently wishes to start over again. She bitterly laments having lived in such an incredibly small and hopelessly ignorant past world. She painfully recalls learning Raymond truly loved Anne, the noble female knight who died serving. Regretting her forced marriage, she admits utter ignorance regarding his deep grief over his love. Determined to successfully start over in this life, she desperately wants to realize his happiness. To bravely secure his joyful future, she strongly resolves to completely avoid Anne's devastating death. He directly questions her selfless resolve to unite them despite her own love for Raymond. Unwavering in her absolute devotion, she powerfully declares it is precisely because she loves him. Understanding her profound sacrifice, the insightful mage softly acknowledges her heartbreaking but incredibly resolute decision. Pledging his loyal service, the helpful mage asks what they should do regarding the Black Knights. She notes the combat-specialized Black Knights serve as the defense force housing Raymond and Anne. Knowing it is an intimidating group, they shrewdly decide a simple town girl look works best. Choosing a new identity meaning light, they confidently agree to adopt the sweet name Lucy. As a maid brings tea, Jung casually announces he needs a body double for the princess. Using his powerful magic, Jung abruptly transforms the screaming maid to perfectly play Lady Angelica. While the terrified Elena stammers in absolute confusion, Jung firmly instructs her to simply stay quiet. With Jung and Elena cooperating, the deeply bewildered princess notes she has absolutely no idea what is happening. Despite lacking martial arts connections, Angelica cautiously begins her new life after miraculously returning from death. An official warmly welcomes the disguised princess to work alongside the honorable knights starting tomorrow. Surprised by the easy acceptance, she learns they expect her to fill an essential assistant position. The official explains their severe shorthandedness forces them to completely ignore social status and personal circumstances. He directly attributes this welcoming attitude to the captain's philosophy regarding the indomitable will of a Black Knight. Meanwhile, a curious Jung asks Lady Angelica exactly how she plans to handle the royal prophecies. Holding her documented future memories, she confidently decides to steadily deliver them bit by bit. Jung happily praises her clever strategy as a highly effective use of her miraculous return from death. He strongly advises keeping her lost foresight an absolute secret while leaving Lady Elena completely in the dark. Just like her previous life, nearly 2 incredibly peaceful years pass by smoothly without any major incident. She somberly reflects that the tranquil peace lasted perfectly until this exact, incredibly critical moment. Disguised as the humble Lucy, she cheerfully announces her immediate departure for the busy night headquarters. Before leaving, she warmly asks the disguised Elena to reliably cover for her again later today. Observing her obvious distress, Jung bluntly asks if Elena is truly dissatisfied with playing the royal princess. The tearful maid panics upon learning the assistant job involves dangerous battlefield healing instead of safe clerical work. Promising to buy a nice town souvenir, Angelica desperately tries comforting the loudly wailing loyal maid. When Jung excitedly requests popular star candy, the highly annoyed maid fiercely tells him to be quiet. Before departing, the determined princess hastily leaves her meticulously written daily prophecy with the court mage. Jung reminds her that investigators are actively checking the remote Adalbert territory based on her specific advice. Since no magical beasts appeared, the frustrated investigators are heavily considering permanently calling off the vital operation. Asserting her royal capacity, she vehemently orders him to firmly persuade the emperor and pope to continue. She anxiously recalls the previous life's disastrous Adalbert expedition where the brave and died fighting magical beasts. Seeing history actively repeating itself, she fearfully questions if they can ever truly escape their grand destiny. Refusing to surrender to tragic fate, she firmly declares there is still much more she can actively do. Rejecting the promised souvenirs, the crying Elena desperately reminds Angelica why she joined the brave Black Knights. The profoundly loyal maid tearfully insists Lady Angelica's safe return home is all she truly ever asks. Feeling deeply apologetic toward poor Elena, Angelica resolutely presses forward to change the rapidly approaching tragic future. Arriving at the bustling courtyard, Lucy is warmly greeted by cheerful comrades watching the usual training spars. She carefully watches Vice Captain George crossing swords intensely with the highly skilled and renowned unit commander Anne. Shocked by the fierce bout, Lucy suddenly gasps upon realizing the formidable Anne is actually injured. While George blames a drunken scuffle, Anne embarrassed and fiercely claims it was just a clumsy mistake. Stepping forward immediately, the dedicated Lucy confidently promises to rapidly heal the wounded commander's painful injuries. A deeply grateful and sincerely praises their highly capable assistant for always reliably healing her battle wounds. Unlike standard blessings, utilizing magical healing requires rare elemental aptitudes that ordinary citizens simply do not possess. Lucy secured her position easily because her exceptional magical healing aptitude is highly valued by the knights. Raymond, the returning captain and her previous beloved, bluntly asks if she healed Anne once again. Apologizing profusely, Raymond firmly reminds Lucy that utilizing healing magic constantly severely exhausts its user. Stepping in playfully, Anne sweetly begs Ray to scold her instead of reprimanding poor Lucy. Gently reassuring her, Raymond firmly insists he holds absolutely no intention of assigning any blame. As and apologizes for the misunderstanding, Lucy warmly acknowledges that Raymond was merely worried about her. Smiling softly to herself, Lucy deeply reflects on the undeniable truth of Raymond being incredibly kind. Anne cheerfully agrees, noting strict national regulations strictly prohibit casting offensive magic directly toward innocent citizens. Remembering star candy errands, they quickly plan a city trip while noting Lord Jung remains magical exceptions. While Anne cheerfully declares her intense desire to guard the assistant, Lucy greatly admires her vibrant expressiveness. Lucy silently praises Anne for possessing incredible thoughtfulness alongside a strong, just readiness to fight dangerous thugs. Feeling immense gratitude, Lucy happily acknowledges how Anne easily helped her bond with the other members immediately. Having bonded over favorite shops, a cheerful and playfully demands that Lucy finally drop all formal titles. Observing her charming personality, Lucy completely understands exactly why Raymond finds himself so deeply attracted to Anne. Desiring to preserve this warm person for Raymond, Lucy thanks Anne while sincerely wishing for her survival. Walking together later, Lord Edgar profusely apologizes for burdening his fellow aide Lucy with numerous official deliveries. While happily searching for the specific shop and recommended, Lucy suddenly pauses upon noticing Lord Edgar stopping. Looking extremely uncomfortable in the unfamiliar territory, an anxious Edgar quietly suggests they completely avoid lingering around. Albert Davis suddenly appears, aggressively questioning why lowly Black Knights are currently loitering within his strict jurisdiction. The noble White Knights proudly consider themselves true holy warriors handling central tasks unlike the lower-class Black Knights. Staring nervously at the hostile man, Lucy silently recalls how pristine white knights often guarded Princess Angelica previously. Condescendingly recognizing the young man, Albert cruelly mocks House Mold's son for serving as a lowly aide. He viciously insults the prestigious family for birthing such a weak man completely lacking swordsmanship and offensive magic. Desperately trying to escape the agonizing humiliation, Edgar hastily offers a meek apology regarding his pending deliveries. As Lucy screams out, Albert violently shoves Edgar for daring to touch his noble uniform so familiarly. Glaring intensely at Albert, Lucy silently reiterates her absolute disdain for his total lack of basic empathy. Angered by her defiant silence, the arrogant vice-captain loudly condemns the entire Black Knights faction for lacking discipline. Drawing his weapon threateningly, a sadistic Albert terrifyingly promises to make the frightened girl suffer just a little. Before the cruel blade can fatally strike, an infuriated Raymond dramatically intervenes to block the deadly incoming attack. Protecting his subordinates fiercely, the stoic captain calmly offers an empty apology for any perceived insolent behavior. Staring down the White Knight dangerously, Raymond sharply questions the cowardly necessity of threatening an completely unarmed aide. Stepping up confidently behind her captain, Lucy firmly declares she will willingly testify regarding everything that just transpired. Holding her magical recording device securely, she confidently threatens to present the undeniable visual evidence in grand court. Ignoring the stunned aggressor entirely, a deeply concerned Raymond immediately turns around to check on poor Edgar's condition. Weeping bitterly upon the ground, a devastated Edgar profusely apologizes for uselessly endangering Lady Lucy during the confrontation. Crouching down respectfully, the honorable captain firmly assures the sobbing boy that he remains a truly respectable aide. Holding him close comfortingly, Raymond gently asks if Edgar actually finds Albert's venomous lies more believable than his truth. Deeply moved by this profound validation, the immensely grateful young aide tearfully thanks his incredibly compassionate commanding captain. Playing things completely safe, fellow knight Eric happily volunteers to escort the injured Edgar directly toward a trusted doctor. Waving goodbye enthusiastically from afar, Eric cheerfully begs the remaining duo to successfully handle the pending association deliveries. Apologizing sincerely for the terrifying ordeal, Raymond fiercely promises to definitely protect Lucy as her personal escort anytime. Staring affectionately at him, Lucy silently realizes she completely missed witnessing this incredible kindness during her previous tragic life. Despite the Black Knights and their feared captain terrifying others, Lucy intimately knows the hidden truth. She realizes he is incredibly compassionate toward his subordinates, earning their absolute and true admiration. Suddenly breaking the silence, the captain kindly asks if she is sure about refusing the star candy. Explaining his sudden arrival, he admits and mentioned the local shop, making him genuinely worried about her. Feeling deeply touched by his protective nature, Lucy finally understands exactly why the captain came here. Acknowledging how much exhausting chaos has happened today, she politely decides to pass on the treats. Remembering her ongoing duties, she briefly mentions she still has an important delivery to promptly complete. Deeply concerned for her safety, he offers to personally escort her all the way back to headquarters. Politely declining his generous offer, she firmly insists she always heads back entirely on her own. Watching her leave, the captain seriously contemplates informing his trusted adjutant much sooner than originally planned. He gravely reveals a highly dangerous military expedition to Adalbert has already been officially decided. Confirming her worst fears, he explains large numbers of magical beasts recently triggered an urgent subjugation request. While secretly fearing unavoidable fate, she listens as he warns the adjutant-accompanied sight will be extremely dangerous. Vowing inwardly to save them no matter what, she aggressively refuses his suggestion of sending an injured Edgar. Standing before Master Zhang later, she somberly acknowledges the dreaded expedition day is finally rapidly approaching. She grimly warns the impending Adalbert expedition will become a brutal battle if following the previous timeline. Fearing unchanging fate, she predicts the valiant Black Knights will be mercilessly forced into a desperate struggle. Continuing her bleak assessment, she sadly confirms avoiding devastating casualties during this massive conflict will be utterly impossible. Addressing Lord Zhang with absolute resolve, she softly suggests it does not have to be An who dies. Regretting dragging an uninformed Elena into this mess, Angelica hands Zhang a letter to deliver after everything ends. She desperately wants the letter to convey her final heartfelt thanks alongside the unbelievable whole truth. Listening intently to her requests, Zhang solemnly notes her ominous words regarding the end sound exactly like a will. Jung recalls Lady Angelica previously attempting to exploit her royal position to actively prevent the disastrous Adalbert expedition. Realizing her backup plan, he sharply asks if she joined the knights simply to attend the expedition herself. Correcting his own words to Lucy, Jung realizes her horrifying plan involves ensuring and avoids becoming the sacrifice. Connecting all the terrifying dots, the stunned mage suddenly realizes she fully intends to die in An's place. Staring bravely ahead, the determined princess softly acknowledges this immense sacrifice will definitely make poor Lady Elena sad. Refusing to waver under any circumstances, she confidently declares she has already completely made up her mind. Praying silently to the heavens, she selflessly begs for Raymond to receive just one more precious chance. Having gathered up her previously lost life, she wants him to enjoy a truly happy life with his love. Clenching her fists with burning resolve, she desperately hopes to single-handedly make that beautiful romantic wish come true. Preparing for ultimate sacrifice, she proudly announces having absolutely no regrets using it all up right here. In the remote frontier of the Wisteria Empire, the desolate Adalbert region stands incredibly and ominously quiet. Overwhelmed by the relentless onslaught, a frustrated soldier curses loudly as the monstrous enemies keep violently multiplying. A desperate knight frantically asks Ray for a viable plan while strongly fearing their completely impending annihilation. Standing firm amidst the terrifying chaos is Lord Raymond, the valiant commander of the highly honorable Black Knights. Suddenly, a massive blast of explosive thunder dramatically and completely shatters the battlefield's heavy and incredibly tense atmosphere. Hearing the sudden massive commotion, the exhausted soldiers exclaim with immense relief that the White Knight reinforcements arrived. Led by the incredibly arrogant Albert, the pristine White Knights effortlessly and completely wipe out all remaining beasts. While the White Knights greedily soak up praise, the heavily damaged Black Knights mourn massive casualties including Anne. Recalling the horrific Adalbert expedition from her previous life, Angelica silently grieves everything that was brutally taken away. Back in the present reality, the stern commander formally concludes the strategic formation for their upcoming dangerous destination. Warning about Adalbert's rapidly multiplying monstrous beasts, he strictly orders everyone to fully prepare both swords and sorcery. The heavily armed resolute soldiers listen intently while mentally steeling themselves for the incredibly harsh battles rapidly approaching. Watching the intense preparations closely, Angelica fiercely vows to absolutely prevent and from tragically dying in this life. Breaking her intense and deep concentration, a highly polite maid gently asks if Lady Angelica is currently heading out. Confirming the maid's polite inquiry, the princess warmly acknowledges her scheduled visit to the local church's orphanage children. The deeply worried maid gently notes how incredibly busy the princess remains, especially with the massive expedition approaching. Seeking a completely regretless life, Angelica suddenly freezes entirely upon hearing a chillingly familiar male voice warmly greeting her. Shocked by Albert's sudden uninvited appearance, she nervously listens as he arrogantly insists on personally escorting her today. Smirking condescendingly at her obvious discomfort, Albert quickly claims this forced escort is a direct order from his uncle. Realizing the immense political weight behind the command, she nervously acknowledges that Pope Walt explicitly orchestrated this unwanted encounter. Resigning herself to the deeply uncomfortable carriage ride, she reluctantly agrees to remain entirely in his highly stifling care. Rattling along the bumpy road, she silently and desperately wonders why Albert remains so terrifyingly obsessed with her completely. She bitterly recalls how their extremely high noble status and similar ages forced them together constantly since early childhood. Remembering his incredibly volatile personality, she nervously notes he was constantly prone to suddenly throwing highly unpredictable vicious tantrums. As Albert smoothly announces their final destination arrival, she grimly reflects on his deeply troubling behavior during past lives. Looking out the carriage window, her anxious face immediately softens warmly as she sees everyone from the orphanage waving. Expressing genuine joy about seeing the children, she completely ignores Albert's intensely calculating and highly unnerving quiet stare. Stepping out of the luxurious carriage, Albert dryly comments on Angelica's seemingly endless and profound devotion to these orphans. A joyful maid happily calls out Lady Angelica's beautiful name while rushing forward to warmly welcome the royal visitor. Cruelly shoving the stumbling maid aside, Albert harshly and viciously declares she is completely in his way without remorse. Ignoring poor Elena's painful gasp, Albert sinisterly whispers that Angelica will eventually become his completely regardless of her resistance. Interrupting the highly tense confrontation, a stern newcomer sharply demands to know the exact meaning behind this unprovoked violence. Albert mockingly greets Commander Raymond and George while noting the Black Knights are praying before their absolutely imminent expedition. Mocking their tiny church, Albert condescendingly offers his supposedly superior assistance to ensure the absolute success of their expedition. Staring intensely at the smirking noble, Angelica silently recalls that Albert was the celebrated hero who exterminated past beasts. While Angelica ponders borrowing his immense strength for security, a fiercely stoic Raymond absolutely declines the incredibly insulting offer. Refusing any outside help entirely, Raymond proudly declares this highly dangerous mission is entrusted solely to the capable knights. Narrowing his cold eyes, an amused Albert simply smirks and casually remarks that their foolish refusal is a pity. Departing gracefully, Albert mockingly advises the stoic commander to try his absolute best not to get himself fatally wounded. Glancing back over his shoulder, the departing noble calls out Lady Angelica's name with a deeply chilling romantic undertone. Angelica frantically asks Elena if she is unhurt and perfectly all right following the violent altercation. Acknowledging the dangerous circumstances of her visit, Raymond firmly offers the princess an immediate royal escort. Hesitating briefly, Angelica desperately realizes that missing today means she will absolutely never get another chance. After she stubbornly insists on continuing, Raymond completely agrees to summon a capital escort for later. Raymond politely apologizes for overstepping with his sudden suggestion while she gently dismisses the minor slight. Angelica formally praises the immense loyalty of the Black Knights while secretly lamenting their incredibly stiff conversation. While the excited children demand playtime, she silently accepts this emotional distance remains entirely for the best. A smiling caretaker gently scolds the rowdy orphans before warmly extending the exact same warning toward Angelica. Looking back at her loyal maid, the profoundly apologetic princess softly asks Elena for absolute forgiveness. Knowing this marks her final visit, she deeply regrets never seeing the bright futures of these precious children. Observing the incredibly bittersweet orphanage reunion from afar, a highly perceptive Raymond softly acknowledges the situation. Narrowing his eyes suspiciously, Raymond intensely questions exactly why that arrogant noble came to this specific orphanage. Glaring intensely from a distance, a highly furious Albert silently curses Raymond while watching the joyful children. Clenching his fist with burning jealousy, the deeply obsessive noble viciously vows to crush any romantic interference. During a private royal meal, the emperor warmly permits his highly accomplished daughter to call him father. He fondly notes her striking resemblance to the late empress regarding both childcare and powerful magical foresight. Despite secretly losing her blessing, she politely accepts his grand command to continually protect their precious people. Acknowledging her lonely palace isolation compared to married siblings, the emperor gently mentions her rapidly approaching birthday. Offering a generous royal recompense, he warmly asks if the hesitant princess harbors any specific grand desires. She suddenly remembers a terrifying past life where a victorious Albert aggressively demanded her hand in marriage. Recalling her dreadful previous life, she remembers exactly how the celebrated hero aggressively claimed the holy saint. While the completely oblivious country erupted with immense joy, the completely trapped princess suffered the mythical union. Doubting his supposedly heroic nature entirely, she tragically questioned if God truly intended this horrific romantic fate. Trapped in horrifying memories, she remembers helplessly begging the incredibly cruel man to stop hurting her friends. She shivers intensely while recalling his absolutely cruel and terrifying nature toward anyone who openly approached her. Returning to the dreadful past memory, a highly shocked Angelica frantically asks why Albert invaded her sanctuary. After she desperately warns him about God's wrath inside the weaponless sanctuary, he quickly and violently silences her. Aggressively claiming she belongs entirely to him, the sadistic noble completely forbids her from calling for salvation. He cruelly mocks her complete isolation by proudly noting how everyone remains entirely intoxicated by their fake ending. Asserting that society only values her saintly role, he brutally ensures nobody will ever hear her helpless cries. Trapped in profound despair during her previous life, the completely broken princess silently sheds absolutely hopeless tears. Continuing the shocking past memory, a profoundly relieved Angelica tearfully questions why Raymond suddenly breached the sanctuary. Firmly demanding the frightened princess step back, the deeply protective knight bravely confronts the highly dangerous aggressor. Seeing Albert quickly prepare a deadly magical attack, she desperately screams for the incredibly brave knight to flee. Shocked by the sudden icy onslaught, Raymond completely freezes as the immensely powerful frost magic strikes his body. Bleeding heavily from the devastating magical strike, the incredibly valiant knight collapses while she watches in absolute horror. Kneeling beside his heavily wounded body, she hysterically demands to know why he risked absolutely everything for her. Staring up with incredibly gentle eyes, the severely injured knight softly confesses he simply heard her distant voice. Despite proudly accepting any severe punishment for breaching sanctuary laws, he utterly refuses to regret violently saving her. Crying intensely over his profound sacrifice, she beautifully realizes her desperate voice truly reached his incredibly kind heart. Remembering his incredibly gentle words, Angelica tenderly recalls him softly whispering that only she truly mattered to him. Naturally, her arranged marriage was completely cancelled after Albert's exposed actions resulted in severe punishment despite surviving. Noting Raymond's absolute lack of powerful backers, officials declared his reckless behavior saving the royal princess completely unforgivable. They ominously predicted the incredibly brave knight would inevitably face an extremely severe punishment for his selfless actions. The stern emperor aggressively questions if this unbelievable proposal truly represents her very first and absolutely final request. Yielding completely to Angelica, the mighty emperor officially grants her desperate request to take Raymond as her companion. Realizing her desperate proposal was a tragic plea, she heavily acknowledges forcefully making him marry the royal princess. Trapped in a completely loveless marriage, Raymond is strictly ordered to live within Bernard territory commanding local knights. Fully acknowledging her own immense personal guilt, she silently reflects that she was entirely prepared for this tragedy. Standing stiffly before his brand new bride, a deeply conflicted Raymond softly calls out Lady Angelica's precious name. Accepting she will absolutely never capture his true heart, she tearfully listens as he swears a white marriage. Selfishly satisfying her own immense ego, she fiercely believes this remains for the best if he miraculously survives. While locals express immense surprise regarding Lord Raymond's sudden territorial return, she silently represses her true loving feelings. A local woman cheerfully notes how living in the peaceful countryside provides immense relief from highly life-threatening missions. Gossiping quietly among themselves, they specifically recall Lady Angelica's sudden marriage happening right after Albert's massive national scandal. Assuming he wishes to protect Lady Angelica locally, they confidently expect the married couple will never return capital-bound. Pausing thoughtfully during their intense conversation, the gossiping citizens softly question the deeper implications if that case remains true. Realizing a married man visiting Commander Anne's grave damages reputations, they mention him completely abandoning her precious mementos. Overhearing the devastating local gossip, a highly shocked Angelica abruptly freezes while desperately processing those heartbreaking words just spoken. She quickly realizes official records regarding the brave Black Knights strictly remain at the capital's massive main headquarters. Flipping through the manor's detailed documents, she realizes Raymond personally recorded every single fallen member flawlessly without exception. Gazing tearfully at a highly specific name, she sadly identifies and as the valiant female knight killed previously. Discovering a deeply heartfelt letter to Vice Commander George, she reads Raymond's solemn vow to protect Angelica forever. Realizing this hidden room holds everything he cherishes, she reads his painful plea requesting George completely forget him. Weeping silently over the tragic discovery, she realizes he completely abandoned his knightly pride alongside memories of love. A haunting hallucination of Albert cruelly taunts Angelica by aggressively blaming her for completely ruining Raymond's entire life. Trembling in utter agonizing terror, she desperately demands to know why Albert continuously haunts her every waking step. The horrifying ghostly phantom vows to relentlessly hunt her down across the vast earth simply to forcibly claim her. Struggling against the relentless nightmarish visions, she agonizingly reflects on how this terrifying mental cycle repeats continuously every time. She hopelessly acknowledges her beloved Raymond will constantly save her while dutifully functioning as both husband and honorable knight. Falling completely into absolute deep despair, she tragically accepts he bravely saves her without harboring any genuine romantic love. Gripped by profound overwhelming self-hatred, she tearfully confesses her immense arrogance in conceitedly believing she could actually help him. Sobbing violently over her immense catastrophic mistakes, she completely admits forcing him to ultimately throw away absolutely everything precious. Reaching her absolute breaking point emotionally, she realizes she continues to selfishly bind him entirely forever through her existence. While she plans to finally free him, Albert's ghostly voice mockingly questions her true intentions with that sharp dagger. Ignoring the terrifying phantom entirely, she passionately begs for Raymond's ultimate freedom as someone frantically calls out her name. Preparing for the final deadly strike, she deeply apologizes for selfishly ruining his life and completely destroying his happiness. Praying desperately for a highly miraculous next time, her ultimate deepest wish is to successfully protect his beloved person. Standing resolutely before the holy divine authorities in a completely new life, she firmly declares her profound saintly intentions. The highly stunned official clarifies her completely shocking decision to dedicate herself exclusively to God without taking any spouse. Affirming her attendance, the man notes the approaching founding festival while expecting her to enjoy the banquet. Pope Walt approaches slowly while respectfully calling out Lady Angelica's name to capture her full undivided attention. Recognizing her immense dedication as a saint, Pope Walt gently suggests she is being a bit too tense. He kindly reminds the young woman that deciding her life path right this very moment remains entirely unnecessary. Recalling recent events, she suddenly remembers hearing Albert arrived to serve as a guard by the Pope's order. She silently wonders if this precise man was always desperately trying to push the two together historically. Expressing polite gratitude for his concern, she internally questions if he simply dotes on his terrifyingly mad nephew. She acknowledges arrogant Albert could potentially become a national hero wielding his sword for the honorable White Knights. Realizing his terrifying madness targets only her, she fiercely determines it must remain entirely hidden from now on. Excusing herself to the sanctuary spring, she firmly promises to offer prayers for the brave Black Knight's safety. Agreeing completely, the Pope prays for the expedition's success while she silently anticipates everything ending very soon. Meanwhile, at the busy headquarters, fully armored knights prepare themselves intensely for the rapidly approaching deadly combat mission. Standing before his loyal troops, the commanding officer loudly orders everyone to depart for Adalbert at once. Maintaining a highly serious demeanor, the stern captain grimly warns them about the likely grueling upcoming combat expedition. Despite the overwhelming looming danger, he passionately commands every single soldier to fight bravely until the very end. Concluding his powerful speech, he proudly reminds the brave warriors of their absolute honor as the Black Knights. Riding steadily through the rugged terrain, they announce their imminent arrival at the designated village within Adalbert territory. Confirming their swift arrival, he firmly orders Lucy to rest adequately preparing for tomorrow's highly intense battle. The tense silence completely envelops the determined group as their sturdy carriage continues its relentlessly bumpy forward journey. Serving warm drinks to everyone, an aide casually mentions the local lord significantly increasing his generous church donations. Discussing the terrified nobles seeking salvation, another soldier predicts other lords will actively follow suit fearing beastly prophecies. Noting church symbols Pope Walt and Princess Angelica, the men cynically joke their prophecies easily extract terrified nobles' wealth. Flinching suddenly under an icy glare, the gossiping soldiers quickly stiffen upon desperately noticing Captain Raymond silently approaching. Punishing their immense disrespect instantly, the fiercely stern captain ruthlessly guarantees there will never be another tolerated incident. While George warmly chuckles at Ray acting identically as always, and politely approaches to offer her sincere apologies. Continuing their hushed conversation, George seriously explains that Captain Raymond feels incredibly indebted toward the noble Princess Angelica. Asking Lucy if she knows their tragic history, he grimly reveals only their unbreakable trio survived their devastated hometown. Looking slightly confused by the sudden revelation, Lucy politely admits solely knowing they were always close childhood friends. George somberly explains they were born in a rural Adalbert-like town completely destroyed by a massive magic beast attack. He solemnly recalls the currently stable Wisteria Empire previously suffering through incredibly frequent internal conflicts and devastating external disasters. Remembering completely destroyed towns, George notes dispatched knights simply could not arrive quickly enough despite receiving accurate early prophecies. Flashing back historically, desperate adults sympathetically beg young Princess Angelica to rest from foreseeing cruel wars and violent death. Envisioning a tragically blood-stained sword, the desperately exhausted princess firmly vows to continue working if innocent lives are saved. Refusing her terrifying dark visions, young Angelica bravely commands her utterly exhausted body to fiercely continue the desperate fight. Returning to the horrific childhood flashback, a young boy angrily curses the heavens while crying over his massacred community. Spotting an isolated hut amidst the immense destruction, the desperate children quickly hope another frightened survivor might hide inside. Shockingly startled by sudden terrifying noises, the deeply traumatized children instantly freeze in absolute horror outside the ruined building. Hearing the ominous low growls, a fiercely protective boy loudly curses upon realizing hungry magic beasts actively roam nearby. As the monstrous creature lunges forward aggressively, a terrified young George desperately screams N's precious name in pure horror. Struggling against the massive beast, a weeping and desperately begs her friends to flee while Ray furiously demands it stops. Interrupting the horrific tragedy, A heroic knight suddenly charges forward while fiercely commanding both frightened children to get down. Striking with immense power, the highly valiant knight perfectly obliterates the terrifying monster before it massacres the trapped children. Watching her injured savior fighting, and clearly recognizes the red blood-stained sword from Princess Angelica's exact tragic prophecy vision. George solemnly concludes their unlikely survival occurred entirely thanks to Princess Angelica broadcasting her highly accurate beast attack prophecy. Embracing his precious friends, a young Raymond expresses immense tearful relief at successfully avoiding losing George and Anne entirely. Vowing to prevent foreseen prophecies from becoming absolute tragedy, Ray fiercely declares his steadfast ambition to become a knight. Leading the practical Black Knights, he strongly asserts nobody is saved without brave warriors actively rushing toward the danger. George sincerely credits the knights for today's peace, noting he and Anne completely agreed with Raymond's bold career decision. Acknowledging the past sacrifices, and abruptly excuses herself after subordinates request her presence for tomorrow's serious strategic captain discussion. George sincerely apologizes to Lucy for bringing up such a heavy topic regarding their tragically shared childhood survivor trauma. He reveals that being adopted by the loving Bernard family was absolute salvation for Raymond's deeply traumatized soul. George playfully notes everyone worried about absent marriage proposals because stoic Ray completely despises navigating pretentious high society. Smirking knowingly, the amused vice captain confidently concludes that formal marriage proposals would simply never progress forward with Raymond anyway. Shocking a blushing Lucy, George cheerfully reveals the mighty captain currently struggles with an incredibly complicated first love affection. Preparing for combat, Lucy realizes their deep bond transcends simple words since the unbreakable trio overcame everything together. Charging forward, the unified knights fiercely command everyone to bravely protect Adalbert, ensuring historical tragedy never repeats itself. The incredibly intense wind howls fiercely as the group steadily approaches the highly dangerous battlefield. Acknowledging the dangerous situation, Raymond firmly orders a nervous Lucy to remain safely by George's side. Suddenly noticing a massive fallen tree plummeting dangerously toward them, the group aggressively braces for impact. Miraculously avoiding disaster, the completely stunned group loudly gasps as the massive danger crashes nearby. Playfully noting their immense surprise, they cheerfully explain Vice Captain George possesses the incredible Great Luck Blessing. Before George can cheerfully explain his own specific blessing, an extremely urgent scream frantically summons the aid. Rushing forward immediately, they urgently discover a heavily injured casualty suffering from venomous magic beast fangs. Lacking essential mana, the deeply apologetic soldier quickly consumes precious herbs to successfully combat the deadly poison. Unlike standard biological toxins, the magical beast poison is easily detoxified entirely using simple magical healing spells. Realizing high mana provides high magical resistance, Lucy suddenly understands exactly why Adalbert survived previously. She shrewdly realizes the incredibly brilliant expedition formation was strategically planned entirely with that specific magical resistance. Vanguard fighters utilize mana offensively while swordsmen logically remain completely protected in the rearguard, saving precious herbs. Silently recalling her tragic previous life, she sadly acknowledges out-of-season wild herbs likely doomed many poison victims. Desperately questioning the grim tactical reality, she anxiously wonders if absolutely any other method saves manaless victims. Delivering a devastatingly bleak answer, the highly experienced soldiers firmly order her to strictly memorize that absolute truth. Charging fiercely across the bloody battlefield, the highly determined commander viciously strikes down incredibly terrifying monstrous beasts. Frustrated by the absolutely relentless massive onslaught, an exhausted fighter fiercely curses the continuously spawning magical beasts. Watching their incredibly brave captain suddenly abandon his current strategic position, they frantically scream out Raymond's name. Analyzing the incredibly chaotic battlefield meticulously, Raymond astutely notices numerous beasts continuously emerging from one specific direction. Rushing aggressively toward the hidden danger zone, the highly skilled knight successfully discovers an ominous glowing rift. Identifying the immensely powerful magical core, he quickly realizes terrifying monsters will constantly spawn while it exists. Gripping his heavy broadsword with intense absolute conviction, the fiercely determined hero quickly prepares a devastating strike. Recalling horrific dark summoning rituals perfectly, he completely shatters the rift, ensuring absolutely no more beasts increase. Charging fiercely toward the shattered magical rift, a highly shocked and desperately asks if someone deliberately summoned beasts. Deeply terrified regarding those incredibly venomous fangs, she aggressively scolds him for fighting completely alone amidst dense beasts. Calmly reassuring his deeply panicked subordinate, the stoic commander firmly explains he successfully eradicated the magical source. Commanding absolute intense focus immediately, he fiercely orders his brave warriors to ruthlessly wipe out every remaining enemy. Suddenly seeing a highly realistic chance to achieve complete victory, Lucy excitedly realizes this seemingly unavoidable battle ends soon. Watching the incredibly brave knights systematically destroy their monstrous enemies, she happily realizes the infamous Adalbert tragedy crumbles. Clenching her fists with immense joyful relief, the determined princess confidently proclaims the doomed future is actively changing. Suddenly shattering the immensely triumphant atmosphere completely, a deeply exhausted and unexpectedly collapses onto the bloody dirt. Completely depleted of all magical mana, the highly vulnerable commander desperately struggles to quickly reach a safe place. Calling out weakly toward their highly skilled assistant, the severely drained knight desperately seeks immediate emergency medical aid. Hearing an incredibly terrifying massive roar echoing loudly, Lucy frantically screams a deadly warning about an incoming attack. Throwing her frail body forward fearlessly, Lucy fiercely vows to protect her precious comrade regardless of consequences. Before the terrifyingly sharp monstrous claws completely rip into Lucy, a highly valiant knight suddenly blocks the devastating strike. Staring forward in absolute complete horror, the incredibly shocked women realize Captain Raymond bravely took the bloody hit. Bleeding profusely from the incredibly deep chest wound, the fiercely stoic commander completely refuses to visibly fall backwards. Coughing up dark crimson blood violently, the immensely stubborn captain softly claims the incredibly deep wound remains manageable. Desperately fighting through absolutely blinding tears, a highly panicked Lucy frantically prepares her incredibly powerful restorative healing magic. Bleeding heavily on the ground, the injured captain completely collapses while desperately awaiting urgent magical healing. Realizing the healing completely fails, Lucy frantically notes things look increasingly bad as his intense suffering worsens. Vice Captain George grimly explains that Ray entirely lacks mana and possesses absolutely no magical poison resistance. Questioning his vanguard placement as captain, she figures and completely overused magic out of deep anxious worry. Analyzing his recent aggressive combat style, Lucy silently confirms he strictly utilized only his heavy physical sword. Reflecting on their current timeline entirely, she suddenly realizes she never actually witnessed him using magic recently. Acknowledging timeline events change, she admits falsely assuming he wielded past ice magic just like previous lifetimes. Staring thoughtfully at his completely motionless body, she beautifully notes her own twisted fate becoming entirely different. Considering these completely shocking timeline alterations, she softly wonders if his tragic fate radically changed as well. Brushing aside lingering historical doubts completely, she fiercely determines she absolutely must successfully detoxify him using herbs. Searching her vital medical supplies frantically, she suddenly remembers the highly terrifying consequences when precious herbs run out. Remembering the deadly battlefield lesson perfectly, she chillingly recalls keeping in mind there is no way to save them.